Welcome to Inside the Innovation Studio, Jaymi, my friend. I'm so glad to have you here. Just so you know, there's a shortcut in my cerebral cortex for you, which is if you need great messaging, call Jaymi. It's ingrained in my head. And for audience members, during the kind of mixed up days of the pandemic, Jaymi was a veritable lifeline for me. She and I think we collaborated for about 6 months before we ever met in person.
Yeah,
It was
please.
one of those super strange pandemic kind of very specific type of stories. We launched Vacara, which you now run, and I think we've always been great idea partners. I will get into your backstory a bit. I know you did some of that with Amy for her methods of invention, but I wanted to start with an exploration of, I think this is your current statement of purpose, and tell me if it jives. Jaymi runs Vacara, a brand design group that lives in the sweet spot where the practical and the mystical meet, the place where visionary brands are born. Jaymi is also the creator of Resonance Design, a catalytic brand building method created from her firsthand understanding of what separates legacy brands from everyone else, a relentless devotion to genius and truth. Is that a fair statement of purpose?
Very good. Yeah.
So a relentless devotion to genius and truth, that is what separates the legacy brands from everyone else.
Yeah.
That's your opening gambit. How? Tell me how.
So, resonance design, which Chris, you were there for like the very beginning days, is a methodology of developing brands that is completely different of the way most people do it, of the way that I was trained, even. Popular marketing mantra today is to be customer obsessed. Resonance design flips that on its head. In fact, the first step is to ignore the consumer. And the reason I say that is because I genuinely believe that the most magnificent version of anybody is their true story. That's it. Tell me your true story. I don't want to know what you think I want to hear. That's how brands are built. Who do you want me to be? There I am. I'm this beautiful brand that the market wants. If it's really genuinely you in this innovation studio built like Lenny Kravitz with guitars and amps and a rad leather chair, look at that smirk. It's you, and it makes you giggle and you're illuminated. Your pupils are alive. You've got blood in your cheeks. You're literally somebody who becomes attractive. And it's when we get into this like true of us, where I think we are most magnetic because it's easy and we're lit up. The genius part is then, you got to execute on this now. There's two parts of genius, though, in my work. There's one original genius where we have a lot of wisdom in us already. I firmly believe that. We have it from our youngest years, and it's going to be the sort of rudder for our truth anyway and how we show up in the world. One, I borrow from Gay Hendricks, and he talks about the zone that we live in, right? The zone of incompetence. This is where I just really have no skill at all. And my example that I always give is in gardening. I don't know why. I'm a nice person. I don't know why these plants don't thrive for me, but I'm incompetent with gardening. The zone of competence is something you're decent at. It's fine. You're never going to go make a career out of it. Zone of excellence is where we do make our careers. We're really good at something. And we build these careers and we get paid lots of money and we get golden handcuffs that keep us in these jobs until one day we're like, why am I doing this? This can't be it. I'm burned out again. And we hit that ceiling of meaning. The zone of genius lives above all those zones. And it's the stuff that we do that truly is gift. And it comes naturally to us. We have like an uncanny skill at doing these things. We could try to, you could probably try to break down how you write or how you play music, Chris, to me, and I still won't exactly be able to play it like you do. But you can try to do that. And you can't wait to, once you start jamming, you're not going to be able to wait to get back to it tomorrow. When you're endeavoring in this zone of genius, everything seems to just be in flow. And so to get people back into remembering this zone of genius, and it doesn't mean you need to go become a professional guitarist actually for your work, but there is something in the creation of music that you have a natural attunement to that I can probably help you translate into what you do for work. And that is, well, we won't get into it necessarily with you, but that's the genius that I talk about for legacy brands. And the other side of genius is, well, now you got to go actually build a business that can execute on this. It's not just about passion. It's not just about truth. And it's not just about operating in this zone where flow happens very often for you. You actually do need to go put on a great business hat and hire a great team that resonates with you and go execute.
Well, you can find a lot of that in your TED Talk, The Secrets to Creating a Resonant Brand, which I pulled this actually from YouTube, is described as laying out a mystical approach to building a magnetic brand. And let me tell you what I think of that as a marketer. I think it's gold. A mystical approach to building a magnetic brand. Sign me up. But as an operator, I'm wondering what's in the box. How do you provide a mystical approach to building a magnetic brand?
Yeah, well, the mystic, which thank you for helping me even identify that term for what I do. I think I've always been a mystic. I just never knew what to call it. And what that means to me is I work with energy. I always have, whether I was at Xbox and figuring out how to launch Xbox 360 into the US channel. It was all, it's not just all numbers and science and math. There's, there's a lot of information that you can receive that is not just obvious, through the five senses. And so when I am helping, visionaries come back and define that vision that starts to anchor a brand, we actually get off typical tracks. Like literally, and you've done this with me, we get on the earth and we'll hike and we're going to go find some magnificent vista and some rocks where we can sit down and remember that this whole experience that we're in is so much bigger than just us. And so tapping into the grandeur, if you will, and then we come back and we endeavor into the heart. And I never used to talk like this at Microsoft. It just wasn't like, you guys, we need to come back into the heart. But it's always what we're going to do when we have to come to inspiration. You're going to have to come back in. And so I take people through, the brand seance, if you will. And it's an inward excavation into that magnificence of truth and genius that exists in all of us, all that wisdom. And getting people back in touch with that person is absolutely magical. And things come online. You can start to see direct connections between all that stuff that is like really genuinely lighting them up and then what they're trying to do in the world. And so, and like I said, if I say again how I think your studio is just super cool. I don't know what's in the window, but I know you designed this to be sort of your passion den, right? And you can imagine sitting in it and just
cave.
yeah, well, I mean that's what it is, right? It's like it surrounds you with everything that lights you up. And when you are lit up, you are magnetic. It's just the way it goes. And that's how the TED Talk started is like, raise your hand if you've ever felt the weight of someone staring at you without seeing them. And everybody's hand goes up. How could that possibly be? Well, because we feel each other. We are energetic beings. Meaning, when you're lit up, you feel good. I feel that. I would like to be near that. As opposed to angry, irate, depressed, whatever, feeling bad. Guess what? I can feel that too. And I'm not saying, like on a psychic level where it's really obvious to all of us, but I am saying every single human can. We just don't, all of us recognize it. And so those of us who are not in resonance, that we don't feel good. And it's frankly, it repels. It repels. Who wants to be by somebody who just, wow, that person's angry. Oh boy, steer clear. So imagine, building a brand. People don't build brands based on those emotions, but if they aren't anchored in that like beautiful resonant truth, they're also not taking the opportunity to become magnetic.
Well, now that we're on the topic of resonance, I wanted to get you in here for the first month of Inside the Innovation Studio because we're talking about Web3, and it sort of maybe seems counterintuitive to bring a brand marketer in when we're talking about crypto and AI and immersive media technologies. But one of the things I discovered when at Ripple we did a big VR piece. We were actually representing Samsung, and we discovered there was a whole new metric called immersiveness. This new quality of like, oh, I'm surrounded. I'm in the story. Immersiveness was a different metric, right? Different than what you would get on digital social media. And one of the things I was always drawn to with resonance was this idea that that is the key metric of Web3. We're trying to build a more socially responsible internet, more authentic, more authenticated internet. One that can build more sustainable. And I've got a whole story about going into mission statements and value propositions. But Facebook went from making the world more open and connected. They changed their brand purpose to building community or something, along those lines. And it was a really important admission that the Web 2 era, in my opinion, was sort of over. The hyper connectivity, making the world more open and connected. Well, you also got to send good content through the pipes. You've got to make it authentic. You've got to make it sustainable. So tell me how you came, and I guess I'm also going to riff very quickly because I know you talk about resonance as like a tuning fork. It's a matter of physics. I think it's also can be a matter of anatomy because I also feel like, it's a matter of physics in what you're broadcasting, what you're sending out to the world, but as what you're receiving, I think it's almost like a neuron. There's a resonance neuron in your brain, and the further up, like, Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, if you can get it to like transcendent experience, then the resonance thing just goes off the chart, and it's just like, okay, this is this really matters to me for as a human being. It resonates. So that's
Yeah.
why I kind of feel like you are like our bolder, woman of the mountains coming in to kind of explain what's missing from Web3, and I think it might be this metric.
Yeah. Uh, I was going to use this line in the talk and I didn't, but it's like we're entering a new type of energy crisis. And I call it a human energy crisis, where there is going to be, and there is presently, so much machine driven interaction or machine driven, just like what am I trying to architecture. It's all the things that are coming at us that we're consuming actually aren't necessarily generated from another human, even though they seem like they are. And as we're going to get into an election period, it's going to be really interesting. What's human and what's not. And then even not now with all of this AI, years back where it was just generally great algorithms targeting ads towards you as data points, you human being as male, Princeton, New Jersey, graduated from Yale with 2 kids, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we could target you with ads, but you weren't really Chris. And that's how we drove a lot of growth in those days for those businesses. It was just so machine to machine. And at the end of the day, like we do feel each other. And when, the whole tuning fork example, the reason it's so cool, and there's a video I want to put on my website that I found this YouTube guy. He's got a tuning fork with a ping pong ball right next to it. and it's like 440 hertz or whatever the right
Mhm.
amplitude is. And then he's got another one here that's like at 350, and he's like banging it with a mallet, and this ping pong ball is completely still against this tuning fork. The second he takes the other 440 tuning fork and barely taps it, the ping pong ball on this one just starts bouncing. And so, it's a matter of being on the same wavelength,
Mhm.
resonating at the vibrational wavelength. And that's, you know, uh, Amy, it was interesting because she's like, does this work for evil too? And I'm like, of course. Just have to be on the
Mm.
same wavelength. Doesn't matter if it's 120 or 440 or 880 or whatever. If you're on the same wavelength, you'll feel each other and then come close. And so when you talk about like that higher, higher, higher resonance, I think for me, it would be more like higher, higher, higher vibration. And, you're getting the woman from the mountains. So you're going to hear me, just talk about vibration and the level of vibration. If you look at how light vibrates, white light vibrates much higher in frequency than dark lights. It's just the way it is. Same with, people who are doing good in the world. Their vibration is very, very high. That's why the hippies will say it's a very high vibe, man. But literally, we're talking about the vibrational signature of somebody who's doing good in the world versus somebody who's doing evil. But either way, whatever you're doing, you're going to attract other people who are at like frequency. So in Web3, if it is to do good in the world, um, absolutely, high vibration is going to matter. And, I usually hesitate to go all the way into this sort of vocabulary in these conversations because I lose people. It's now too woo woo, it's too mystical. High vibe, what the heck are you talking about? But I do think, consciousness of the coders is really, really, really important. And if you've got coders in the blockchain or, people coding all of these incredibly powerful AI tools and engines, and it's not a conscious effort, it's we're going to have problems in Web3. So it's not just resonance, because resonance can exist on any vibrational frequency.
Mhm.
It is uh, the people who are doing good work in the world, please just find that truth, because that's where you're going to resonate the most vibrantly. And that will be what people feel more than think.
I think
Is
what's
that
it makes absolute sense to me. But I obviously drank the Kool-Aid with you a couple of years ago. But it does seem like you're talking about inspiring action, generating loyalty is a matter of establishing resonance, is a matter of sort of getting people to go, this is what I was looking for. And from my perspective, I'm not going to go into all of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but you sort of start with the physiological, you go up to like esteem and security and safety, and until you get to self-actualization, being all you can be, and then ultimately transcendence. And it
Mhm.
does strike me that those are also gradations of how resonant something is for us. If you have a transcendent idea is a legacy idea, I think.
Mm,
It's something
yeah.
that transcends oneself and considers the next generation. I've made a transcendent operation because it can survive without me. And that's a legacy operation. The question I have is there's, like Ari does a whole series on the world's oldest companies. And he looks at, like this pharmacy from Croatia that's been around since I don't know, the 5th century or whatever. And it's called Town Pharmacy or something like that. And it's sitting in the town square. So I guess location is everything. And we were trying to figure out, like, well, why is that business lasted? Well, they had a pretty good spot from the get go. But they have been pursuing I think like resonance or creating that sort of generating that level of loyalty does not necessarily have to be a matter of like striking the white hot part of the tuning fork or whatever the case may be, but it can also be just a matter of like fulfilling very essential human needs that, like great customer service, community orientation, whatever those particular values may be. But are there gradations in resonance? And, why do you say that genius and truth are the kind of the kind of secret ingredients for these legacy companies?
Yeah. To be long-standing as a pharmacy
Hmm.
means that there is a very, sorry. So to be long-standing as a pharmacy, in a town square, yes, good location, but for some reason they never sold out to a restaurant who was
Hmm.
offering them a better deal, or whatever, a bike shop, or the newest B&B, or I don't know. There is something that anchored them in being a pharmacy for so long. Not just that they succeeded, because they're obviously great at operating. That's the other part of genius that I mentioned. You still got to bring this to
Hmm.
market well. So they're obviously really good at that. But why did they stay a pharmacy? That's an interesting question, in my opinion. And there's probably not just it's a great business answer. Because I don't know, are pharmacies the greatest businesses? Maybe. I just never thought of them that way. Um, but there's something in, you know, if I were to speculate, there's a healer in that family. That's it. And that person exists to heal. And they didn't choose, to be a doctor, but they certainly are fulfilling medications. And then also they found great business in tourism with gummy bears and everything else that they sell. But there is an anchor there that kept them operating as this. And this is where I get into people feel it. It's not just that it was a great business idea and a great location, it's that we as humans feel each other. It's just true. And we know that. There's no arguing it. We already know it's very, very true. That's how we develop relationships. Relationships that are genuine and honest last. Or when they break, they are broken. And they're not really iffy, and they're not contingent on, yeah, but now you're wearing the wrong thing, or now you're listening to the wrong music, or you got to give me a better price to stick around now. They're not like broken relationships on small things. They'll be broken on big things. But when we feel each other and we resonate together, um, I've got you. I've got your back. And as I was saying to Amy in our conversation, that even means that I know Chris gets cranky when this happens, and it's not a surprise to me. I know exactly who you are. You were never trying to be anybody else but the man who got cranky when something like that happened. And I can say to everyone else, just give him a minute. This is his thing. He gets cranky at this. He'll be back. Like, it forgives even these sways of bad behavior or even bad performance, probably, from a business perspective. As long as you stay anchored in who you are, as long as you're truthful, then I know, and I've got you. And so, that's my premise, is that when you build brands from these anchors of truth and you stand for who you are, uh, that the relationships that are galvanized just last longer and go deeper. And
Hmm.
so those businesses should last, because you're going to have less churn. You will have fewer customers leave you just for better deals. You will have people who, what's NPS? NPS is Net Promoter Score. How many people are recommending you or actually talking badly about you without you paying them to do either one, or not that you'd pay them to
Hmm.
talk bad about you. And NPS is a great actually thing that investors look at. Like, the valuation of your company goes up. The lifetime value and the cost of acquisition for customers comes into the exact golden ratio. So, yeah, that's just my premise is long-standing businesses have some anchoring in truth that goes deep into something very human, because that's the level that we feel each other.
I think what I find really fascinating about your school of thought is you were sort of weaned with Microsoft. You say your professional education came in uh, Redmond, Redmond, Washington,
Yeah.
correct? So you have this almost preternatural skill as a customer acquirer, right? That's what you're learning there, and you like these are the tools that you get there. You're talking about the kind of the roots of customer retention. You know, how do you create a loyal customer? How do you make them come back? If you want that customer acquisition cost to lifetime value ratio to be really, really good, you got to keep that customer forever, you know,
Yeah.
or as long as you possibly can. And I think that that has been something, especially in the performance marketing era, especially in the, you know, the way digital advertising is done. Uh, you know, customer acquisition is, I feel like it's so far out in front of every organization's marketing strategy, and customer retention, which is doing the things that Patagonia does, doing the things that you recommend doing, doing the things that sort of create a brand and an identity that people can really kind of wrap their arms around and be loyal to. You know,
That's
like I've been using the same, you know, Apple products for my entire life. Like I started with that little cube computer in college and
yeah.
never gone anywhere else.
Yeah.
Where did you pick that particular skill up? Where did you switch from like, oh, I can get all kinds of customers at $25 a head to
Yeah.
let's see if we can actually keep that customer and actually get more value out of like keeping them for many, many years rather than getting them at a really low cut rate.
That's right. Well, yeah, I'm a customer acquirer, yes, but really what I have been tasked with is growth. And so that
Mm-hmm.
means that you are acquiring, as you said, the customers who stay. So you're not constantly refilling a bucket that has a hole in it. You acquire customers, but they leave. That's bad business, very bad business. And because subscription businesses have been really mostly what I've worked on, that was just a very obvious thing. It's not just about acquiring a customer, any customer, acquire the right one. And it's not just about keeping a customer happy once you have them, because that alone as the premise means that then you have to have a really good deal structure in place, you know, an incentive system that break and they want to leave, you keep them around just by saying, I'll give you another month. Will that keep you around? Or, oh, now they want us to get into this business. So let's stand up that business because that's saying what they want. That's really how most companies are doing it. A lot of customer input, and it informs exactly what they go do. That's fabulous if it's along the lines of a genuine relationship between you and the customer. And in my TED Talk, the fourth thing I tell you to do is to embrace your fans, because the first one I said is to ignore the consumer. Your fans are the ones who, like, you got each other, you get each other, you kind of share those values, if you will. And you're not going to see everything and you're going to make mistakes. And they're the ones who are going to be like, hey, Chris, you might have a blind spot on this. But because we trust each other and there's this genuine respect, you're going to listen and be like, wow, thank you. I didn't see that. Instead of me being like, oh my God, did you see Chris Kincaid? He just, you know, totally, and now talking badly about you. That's a crappy relationship where there wasn't that trust. Acquiring the right customer who shares those values, and you're only going to know that because you are living them and they were
Mm-hmm.
attracted to them. Then those
Mm-hmm.
relationships over time, like they stay, they pay premiums, they're referring people to you. That's great customer acquisition, is when you grow through referrals. Like, what's the CAC on that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, because I know us, you're really going to like this guy. They're really high quality referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, it's like grow this business and innovate based on this amazing like circle of, or what do we call those, circle of values,
Mm-hmm.
cycle of values that happen when all these people who care about the same things come together. And that's where this like co-creation between a brand and its consumers is so cool. But again, it can only exist when you are in truth with yourself and operating from this point to where I would even say resonant brands should know how to fire customers.
I think that actually is more than true. I've been there to a point where if you can eliminate a toxic influence, it makes the whole enterprise grow. So let me get into this mysticism. And I know you come by it honestly because you are in fact a mystic and I've seen it firsthand. But how does one find that intersection of purpose and personal genius or passion and superpower? Do I need
Mm,
to come out to Boulder and walk up the mountain with you? Because I know you are a messaging genius. You've been able to like boil, a brand down into a really pithy phrase very quickly. But can I find this without the aid of a Sherpa like you to sort of walk with me and say, okay, let's find your purpose. Let's figure out where your superpower is like. Because I wonder if I really don't need to just come to Boulder and we'll take a hike up the mountains together.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm interested in scaling what I do because I think the world needs it. I really do. I think even outside this theater of business, let's just talk humans. We need more people who are
Hmm.
really just who they are, and not that doesn't forgive you and your bad behavior. It means know you in your most evolved self. We need all of us to be there. Everything in the world changes if that one thing happens. So I want to figure out how to scale this, but I haven't quite figured it out yet. But I am happy to, and the TED Talk goes into it a little bit, share how I navigate people through exercises to actually get to some insights. And what you have seen is me receive the insights and then come back with a line, a
Hmm.
brand, a visual, something that then when you recognize yourself in it, it's like, oh gosh, that is me. It's a most beautiful thing. And how many times have people cried when this happens that you've witnessed,
Hmm.
right? Almost every time. It's that powerful. So I don't know. I don't know, Chris. I don't know if I can just write this book and people can read it and figure it out. But I do think if they take these steps, they're going to get closer than they've ever been.
Well, and if you can, I would encourage you to scale it. But I also think that anybody, well, I wouldn't say that anybody would benefit from a walk up that mountain with you. I think that they have to be ready for growth. And people say that they're ready for growth, and they're not really ready for
Yeah,
growth. Oh, yes,
it's
of
true.
course, we want to grow. We're ready to do that. But you really have, what is it? What does a leader have to have as sort of a prerequisite to be able to go through this marketing seance, brand seance, whatever the case may be, with you and derive, you know, real tangible outcomes from it and product, or not products, but learnings, truths,
Yeah.
whatever that they can take forward? What do they need first?
Yeah. They need humility. The first thing I see a lot of people struggle with, where I can just tell it's not time, it's okay, is when the ego is just still in charge, and if they don't, they're not even near the courage of letting this facade go. In fact, this mask is so well developed. And as I said to Amy, like, you've got shareholders or you've got a board or investors, whatever. Like, what the hell is going to happen if I take this mask off? They're not going to approve anymore. I may lose my position. So it's courage for sure to pursue a bigger version of yourself that may not be a match to this mask that you've created. And then the humility to realize uh, that mask you created is not the greatest version of you.
I think I have one other thought. Um, and it's not, I don't know if it's a matter, maybe it is a matter of humility, but um, I don't know if it was in our orbit, a client, and I now use them as sort of an example in my talk about like you're focused on the wrong stuff. Like, and my position is people don't care, or customers don't care. Your board may care if you're reimagining healthcare. That is a business value. Your customer wants to trust their doctor. They want to feel secure in their wellness. They want to have faith in growing old. All those things. That's what the customer wants. But you may be reimagining healthcare. You may have come up with a new gee whiz thing, but that's not the story that's going to land. And I don't know if resistance to that idea is a matter of humility or just an understanding of what is a human value versus what is a machine value, which is what is a market value, which is what is a business value. Like I think there's some of that in there where people just go like, oh no, I don't need to do that because like I'm getting all these great KPIs from over here.
Right.
Like I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you need to have the humility that for sure you're not always right. For
Hmm.
sure. And I think for some reason it's hard for people to admit they're wrong or they're missing something. And so, yeah, humility, because that's going to allow the space for us to explore now. Otherwise, it's just mind is closed. Um, and then, yeah, the leader's gonna just really need to be able to get vulnerable. And this is the hardest part, but it's the most beautiful and it's the most powerful. And that is really, truly, who are you? Truly, what's your true story? And on my website, that's the line I wrote. I want to know your true story. Are you ready to tell it? Because not
Hmm.
everybody is. Not even, definitely not to themselves, much less to the world.
I think at a later date we should have a lightning round where we kind of bounce off our different pieces of copy. I mean, you've got good people doing important work. What resonates, congregates. I threw in moving humanity forward is the new cost of doing business, and I think that they're all of a piece to a certain extent. And I look at it as well. That's kind of a marketing reality. You can't just sell the look. You have to inspire people to lead fearless
Mm.
lives and all that other stuff. And I think that increasingly, as we live in this web world, what you are preaching, finding your resonance, being, true to whatever your truth is also what people will pay attention to because now there's everything is transparent. We live in
Yeah.
this big open. I mean, we all know the bad shit that goes on at Facebook or Twitter or wherever because it's somebody's going to leak it. You're going to find out, like, and so there does need to be at some point, like a sense of a real human mission or I feel like the default factor has to be okay. Is this going to move humanity forward, especially now in the AI age?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It will be. And this is, people consider the heart is a brain. The heart actually receives information before the head. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've ever seen those studies where they can actually kind of measure your energetic field around you. And the energetic field from your heart goes like 6 feet in outside of you. And the energetic extension of what comes from your brain goes about 3. So literally, we have receptors that mean we feel before we think, and we connect here before we connect here. And it is a moment of crisis where it's just too machine based and not enough human based. And we as humans, we need to feel each other, and the greatest motivators will come from here in our lives. We know that for sure.
Hmm.
We think this trumps all, but it's just going to always take a lead from here. Um, and so, as we develop meaningful businesses that move humanity forward, and the brands that are articulated with such truth that they, as a beacon, send the signal that other people can either resonate with or actually become repelled by, it's just going to require such humanity of coming back into the heart. So, I mean, this has been the exploration. How do I take the mysticism of all of this stuff that I talk about into the very practical world where really I've built my career and drive growth that's meaningful and not like getting over your skis by paying too much for customers who don't stay because they could give a shit about you, really what you care about. It just was a mismatch. And all it comes down to is just, are you anchored? Before you can anchor your company and brand in this truth, the leader has to become anchored. And the truth can
100.
be, listen, we're a commodities company. It just doesn't matter. That's okay. Those are good businesses too.
I've had those conversations too, where, it's like an investor saying, well, our bottom line is, and I said, well, efficiency is also a value, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
You got to be true to who you are. And sometimes if you try to, be Pepsi and fake it, you'll have a big, what was it, Kylie Jenner? I don't remember
that's
which
right.
Jenner it
Yeah,
was that all
yeah.
blew up in their face. Listen, I know you're short on time today, so we're gonna have to figure out how to get you back into the innovation studio, and also I think over on the methods invention. But ultimately, so our original structure for this, and we realized we were asking people to do too many live streams, and people wanted to be able to download the content at their own pace, but they still want to have opportunities to interact and talk with folks. And so we're kind of adopting a bit more of an AMA, Ask Me Anything approach, where we can have people come in and, that have real, actual questions, and almost create a studio environment where you might be able to come in. Because that's where I think you are your best, is like working with people and kind of bouncing ideas. And so I'd love to bring you back for that. I mean, I have plenty of other questions for you. I feel like we could probably spend a whole hour just kind of like bouncing ideas back and forth on
Totally.
values and resonance,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But I don't want
That'd
to.
be
I
fun.
don't want to. What's that?
All of the above.
All of the above. Well, awesome. Well, Jaymi, as always, delightful to see you, and thank you for gracing us with your presence here on
Oh,
the Innovation Studio.
I love what you're building. I love it. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Okay.